Alex, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Great to be here.
Yeah, I think your workshop is a very important one. It's something that, especially for FX people or just people using Houdini in general, I think it is something that people don't look at enough, which is rendering, lighting, and also compositing. Especially, I get a lot of show reels. I need to check a lot of work from students, and especially if they're FX artists, they send me renders and they're not even comped or they're not in aces. Like the highlights are blown out, and I'm like, your work would be so much better if you knew how to present it in a better way, and that comes with knowing the fundamentals, or in this case, mastering lighting and rendering in Houdini.
Really nice segue. I love it.
Yeah.
So yeah, although I think there's also the other side of the coin. Like it's constantly getting better. The quality of especially junior level people, like it's crazy how far off it is from where we were 10 years ago. Like
I agree.
Yeah. 10 years ago, we could render like some very basic I don't know, visualizations of like buildings and stuff, and we were proud of ourselves. And now people are doing like whole S environments and everything.
Yeah, full short films. I've seen a few juniors from France. They did a short film, and it looks as like I'm almost like a bit embarrassed in a way how good what they did. It's like senior level work, and they're straight out of school. And I was like, it's insane.
It's putting up the bar though. If you really want to get into this, at one point you just have to race with these conditions. Mm-hmm. But I think on the other end, we also have much better tools. Like for example, you mentioned ACES. The way how ACES got integrated into most of the softwares and it works natively is pretty amazing. So that way you don't really have to worry about creating your tone map for your own stuff. It's making it easier.
Yeah, but I still see people not using it, even though it's integrated directly in Houdini. I made a full free workshop on it. I was for 2 hours talking about ACES, how to use it in DaVinci, how to use it in Nuke, how to do it in Houdini. And still people message me or show me stuff that's not properly tone mapped. And I'm just want to start slapping everything. But can you, before we move on and you show us about the workshop and what is included, can you do a quick intro on yourself? How did you got into lighting, rendering, compositing, and where do you work now? And kind of a bit about your past experience in the industry.
Yeah, sure. I'm Alex Victor Toth, and it was a bit of a strange way how I ended up with light and comp. Basically, I wanted to do 3D when I was I don't know, 16. So it's pretty much the same path for most of us at that point. We start to look for different groups. I don't think Discord was really a big thing back then. So I'm not even sure if it existed.
No, it didn't exist. Yeah,
no, it didn't. Yeah, I don't think so. But I was looking at Facebook groups, so I joined different Facebook groups, especially in Hungary, and I joined hobby projects, doing assets for games, and that's how I started out with 3D. And and then I saw this opportunity back at Digic. I think it's 2016 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even before. Yeah, that they are hiring interns for technical compositing.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of lucky. I was doing pretty much what they were looking for on my own as a hobby. So I was doing videos from my balcony, doing quick cleanup work, removing lampposts on the street, and then adding a green screen UFO in the background and stuff like this. And technical compositing for them was pretty much this, doing DMP prep work and doing simple FX integration, especially in early stages of production. So we were the ones who were creating timing for effects. So just putting in a sphere in comp, animating it, and then giving it to the client for the very first iteration of the movie. It was more like a tech pass. Maybe that's what most studios are familiar with. Yeah. And we were creating transition shots and those type of more technical comp stuff. After a while, this role transitioned into lighting and comp. I really liked the lighting part. I was not really too much of an artistic comper. And I started to focus more on the lighting.
Mm-hmm.
I've worked there for like 5 years. I become a lead. At one point, my first lead project was Sekiro, the
Mm,
Shadow Dies Twice trailer.
mm-hmm,
That's still one of my favorites until nowadays.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a long journey, especially with now when everything is like moving more towards stylized. Because I was always in the very I was always more technical and more focused on the lighting. And at one point, accidentally, I started working on some Chinese project with like stylized CG, and then transitioned into Valorant, which was also stylized. And I started working more on the comp side. And now people are calling me for stylized comp work rather than any of the technical lighting work.
That's
so
cool.
you just kind of have to go with the flow, basically.
Yeah. Can you talk about what you're working on right now, or is that still hush hush?
It's public. I'm
Okay.
working with Digic right now, and
Yeah.
Digic has won the new Netflix series for Magic the Gathering. So there's no other information out there yet, but they are actively like recruiting for that exact
Yeah.
project. Of course, very early stages. It just got announced. I'm pretty sure
It's going
it
to be
will
a big one.
interesting.
I've heard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
I'm sure it's going to be awesome. Yeah. I was always thinking for Magic the Gathering, when are they going to do a series? Or I always thought Blizzard is going to do a series, like a Diablo series, or, like, which I was maybe someday, but we'll see.
Blizzard, like, I don't know. Blizzard never really does their stuff anymore. That's sadly the trend, though. Like,
I know. I was such a big fan. That was my kind of life goal, was working at Blizzard. I supervised one cinematic and I saw it premiered at BlizzCon, and I was like, okay, I kind of felt okay with that as my kind of bucket list. Yeah.
for me, it was Assassin's Creed, to be honest. Like, I really wanted to work on Assassin's Creed. That was actually my starting point. Like, I got interested in like CG because of the Brotherhood trailer.
Mm.
You know, the one which
Oh, I know
made?
the one. Yeah.
He's walking in the red ocean of people. Yeah, that was great.
That was, I remember back then I was, that was a while ago, right? 2008?
Yes,
No.
it was a very long time ago.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah. I don't think I was even working in the industry back then. But I had my studio where I was a cinematographer before I went into CG. And I was a big gamer, but I used that cinematic. I was analyzing it as a live action cinematographer. I was analyzing that cinematic and how they did the shots and editing and music, and just like the overall vibe of everything was color grading. I still remember. It's like, it's almost black and white, but it has those pockets of color every now and then.
Recently, I looked up some older trailers because I do have the idea of trying to approach some of them with like modern tools and techniques. And this one definitely shows its age, especially because of the tone mapping we talked about. Like it does have very clamped highlights, but that was technical limitation at that time. And when I started working, we were like faking resolution like crazy. We were rendering very small images, trying to up-res.
Faking dynamic range as well. And which is crazy because even back then, in theory, if you rendered, like an EXR, you had the dynamic range. It's just the mapping that was kind of missing, and the logic behind that.
The mapping was artistic. Like I even worked at that time. I worked with linear. Like we had like custom S curves lifting the blacks, but it was
it's not the same. Yeah, I know.
Too much freedom is basically a downfall at that point.
Yeah. Well, awesome, man. I know you have a bunch of stuff you can show us and present to us, and we can, while you're presenting, chat about what the content of the workshop and who is this for and what people are gonna take away if they enroll in the workshop. Yeah.
But I think we can connect to the previous topic quite nicely, because my inspiration for the workshop, when you approached me to like try to work on a workshop together, one of my first thoughts was Assassin's Creed was pretty much an inspiration for me. So I'm pretty sure like there are people around who treat it the same way. Yeah. So I looked up something maybe a bit more recent and with a smaller scope, which maybe we could recreate or like create an homage for.
Yep.
And stumbled upon the latest Assassin's Creed trailer, or one of the latest. And it was the Assassin's Creed Shadows official trailer. I didn't actually work on this one. I was away at Blur during that time. But this served as an inspiration for me for creating the workshop. Here in the middle, we have this sequence, which is just a few shots with some loose story around it in this dojo environment. And I didn't want it to copy this one-to-one, and I thought like we can maybe push it to something more interesting. Here, I guess they wanted to break up the mood of the trailer by creating a more calming and relaxed atmosphere with the sun. But the big challenge when it comes to lighting is not really like sunlit environment or like exteriors. It's always interiors. Interiors are way more complex. Not just because of like dark environments are, they need more light sources. That's part of the complexity. But also they are harder to render. There are more challenges with like sampling and also it shows a lot more if there's not enough or too much light somewhere. So I decided to do something quite similar to this, but with slightly different cameras, different angles, different lighting, of course, different environment and characters. This was basically the starting point for the workshop.
Can you show your final renders?
My final renders? Yes.
I'm sure people by now saw them maybe in the trailer that we released, but just for the heck of it, maybe if somebody is watching this for the first time.
For the very first shot, this is my final render. I think I have like some ProRes written out somewhere and I can look this up. Or maybe we can add them in edit later to this section. But you can see how the initial camera is basically inspired by that opening shot, just without the crowd in the foreground. And I wanted to introduce a lot of dynamic elements because I think small little touches make a huge difference. So we could do an environment lighting like this with one single light source in the middle, a bit of light leaking in, but that's probably not too interesting. So adding candles to the side, adding a bit of motion to the ground by creating like wet maps and a little bit of rain, subtle atmosphere, which is like going through the scene. I think this is what compositing is about. So I try to focus on creating a shot which I will be happy to present on an actual CG trailer. I think we got to the point where I would be happy to bring this to a real review during my normal working.
No, it looks like a shot from a cinematic for sure. Yeah.
And that's also like connects back up to what we talked about at the very beginning. I don't think this would have been possible like 10 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, just hardware wise, right?
Yes.
To render this. Now we can render this on our local machines. And back then, even that was pain in the ass. But just like, even like, humans, we evolve and our knowledge evolves as well. So everybody is a bit better than what we were 10 years ago, right? And in a way, it's also because of people like you or people like me who we learn and then we share our knowledge. And now there's going to be a new generation of people who are that's going to be their starting point. Right? This, something that took us 10 years to get to this point, for some people, that's where they're going to start learning. So in 10 years, who knows what the quality bar is going to be like, but yeah.
I really hope we are going to be above the Coca-Cola ad.
That was so bad. Freaking Coca-Cola. Yeah, pisses me off so much.
Let's hope that's not the new starting
The new
point.
bar.
Yes.
It's really low.
It is, but let's hope we can move somewhere. But you mentioned hardware-wise, it wouldn't have been possible. To be honest, this is still possible only with a lot of cheating. That was also a goal for me, that I want to render these with the actual hardware I have, and I don't really have like a lot of high-end stuff. Like I have 65 gigabytes of RAM because that's enough for like 95% of what I do, and I do have a decent CPU from like 4 years ago, but I just don't feel like I need a $5,000 PC at home.
Yeah,
I do most of my work at the office. They pay for the gear. At home, I do work on some projects, but if you work in a clever way, you can get away with a lot less hardware requirements. And let's look at some examples. Maybe, for example, we could create a really dense, detailed atmosphere for a scene like this to have some tiny bit of haziness. But if we create that in motion, then we need like enough density in the atmosphere that's hard to simulate, etc. Or we can simply just go with some clever cards placed in the right place, animated, and then there are the small techniques which really help to sell this effect. And one of them, and I think this is probably the biggest thing, is of course relying on deep. Deep is like very important for these type of effects. But it's adding and subtracting from the deep front and the back. Yeah, that way you can specify a thickness value, and it will basically blur out the card's holdouts. If I set this to 0, and then it will feel like a card. And this is where we were, like, for example, like 5 years ago, or like not 5, maybe 6, 8, 10. But now we can do a very simple tricks like adding thickness to the deep, and this will basically create a box from the card with the front and the back, and adding a holdout with the environment will make it much more believable. And at this point, you can very easily get away with doing much more complex card layouts and not even having to go back to complex simulations, at least for non-unique elements.
Yeah, makes sense.
And awesome. I also tried similar things with, like, I need rain for one shot only. I don't really want to simulate for that. I probably just do a few layers of these cards, and and it works surprisingly well. You can do a lot of things with very simple and computationally easy solutions. And I think we can also look at this shot.
Well, wait, you're still frozen.
Am I? I'm not on my end anymore.
Oh, damn.
Okay.
Let's see.
Should I quit?
It's gonna... Alex Toth has stopped recording somewhere around.
I'm back. Am I?
Let's see. It's fine. I'll probably cut out this part, but I just want to know that your stuff is also being recorded now. It should be. Yeah, no, it should be fine. Like everything before should be recorded. But yeah, I can see you now again.
Great.
Okay, let's continue.
Yeah.
Got it.
Let's go. So I also focused on creating like simplifications, which doesn't only save on like actual hardware use, but also saves a lot on render time. And I think a lot of people are nowadays like skipping over the older optimization techniques, which we used to rely on, and creating much heavier setups. I hear this from mostly the game side, that people nowadays, they just don't know how to optimize an asset. But I think it's also there for rendering. For example, if you have an environment like this, it's a background for a very simple shot. I will show you the shot first, and this is the shot. So it's nothing fancy. There's maybe like a tiny camera motion, like slowly pushing in. But I don't want to render like 40 frames of that still background, because it will be a lot of waste. So what I do is I just increase the camera, render one single still frame, and then align that with like the background. I can generate a point cloud from the background based on that render. Like this is the vert position of the background, the points. And I can simply create a card which is like going through that exact position. And this card is going to get a projection from a projection camera, which is the camera I rendered from. And at the end, I do have the exact same camera motion. Of course, here I separated out the foreground bit from the background. With like maybe 5 minutes of work, like setting up this single projection setup, I think I saved like probably 10 hours of render time, maybe, even if like, I don't know, maybe on 100 frames it would have been 10 hours. Maybe here it's like 5 hours, but it's worth it for me because it was so quick, so easy. And for more complex shots, this can save even more. In the workshop, I'm talking a lot about limitations, like when to use these type of techniques, when not. And actually we used to do this a lot on especially game cinematics, when it's not really about a trailer, but it's like a cutscene, and we have a lot of cameras. We have maybe like 30 minutes of material, and rendering costs a lot, especially on large scale.
Yeah.
And there are other type of like optimization tactics I'm using. For example, you might not want to render like a full environment just to reflect in these semi-rusty coins. So here I'm using something which is closer to the cube mapping in the gaming side. Basically rendering an HDRI from my environment with the exact position of the camera where the asset is. And then using that 360 image as an HDRI. And that fakes my GI. So if I just look at this, is it the pass? Let's see. Yeah, this is the sky pass. This is basically my GI pass, just not from actual ray tracing. And that way it's like really clean. And this layer rendered nearly, I think it was like 15 seconds per frame or something like that, instead of like 30 minutes per frame. So those are like great techniques to use, especially on home projects, especially if you are limited with hardware. And yeah, I think we have to like, if we learn these techniques, maybe we can increase the quality of our own work at home compared to what studios are able to do with a lot more resources. So I think that's part of like relying on the new technologies like ACEs or like the new GPU rendering. But you also have to rely on like some of the older optimization. If you combine those two, that combination is working really nicely.
Yeah, looks great. Honestly, looks amazing.
I also worked. Yeah, I had an entire lesson in the workshop, which is just about like how to optimize like FX lights, and I think that also connects nicely to the topic we are talking about. And this is like a very simple test scene just to really see the differences. We have a simple setup, a camera, an environment, some characters, a fire, which is just the cached fire loaded and fire material applied to it. The fire material has an emissive property, but while it's probably the truest to life implementation of FX lighting, of course, every single particle would emit some amount of light. It's crazy complex to calculate and because of that, you can see how I've been rendering this for like 40 seconds and it's still really noisy. To optimize this layer, I would need to push the samples very high. But if we can remove that by setting the render visibility of the fire to primary only. And then we remove that emissive calculation while keeping the actual fire renderable. In other like terminologies, like maybe in Arnold, this is achieved by a ray switch in the shader. But here in USD, that's probably the best way. And we can just place a light in the middle and try to get a similar intensity down there. But if we place a light in the middle, of course, there will be some consequences. First of all, the shadow quality won't be the same. The reflection, you can see just a point light in the reflection. So we can start working, but it cleared in like 15 minutes, in 15 seconds, sorry. In 15 seconds, it got way clearer than the other one in like 50. And we can start working on the different parameters of the original light and try to get better and better approximation of that emissive lighting. If we just care about the shadow quality on the floor, like how soft the shadow is, shadow or light quality doesn't usually refer to how noisy the light is. It's referring to how soft the transition is between shadow and light. And if we increase the scale of the light source, then we have a softer shadow. And here you can already see like that softness kind of matches what we had with the emissive. But we can go further. We can maybe chain together multiple lights, like space them out slightly. And we can create maybe like a path it follows, or like or maybe an expression which just jitters the lights randomly. And that will give a bit more of a randomness to the motion of the light source. Here I just created this path from just randomly scattering around points in a sphere, and then using this path and distorted to add lights. Because I added like multiple light sources, you can see that sometimes the shadows are softer and sometimes they are harder. And that really is how fire behaves in nature. And because some areas have denser heat and they emit more light, others are less dense. And this is once again a better approximation, but it's still cleared with like 3 different light sources in 20 seconds. We already had a really clean render. The reflection is still looking bad. So there are different techniques like meshing down the light, trying to find a better or more lightweight emissive shader. So instead of like emissive from volume, we do emissive from mesh. That's also somewhat easier, and we can do different stuff like applying texture to the light. Oh yes, the base color here might be off slightly in my test scene. We can of course just try to fix that either manually or by selecting values. For example, a textured light source has a perfect reflection. It sometimes is a better reflection than the actual volume. And I use this a lot in a lot of my projects. If I need a really nice fire reflection, then I just use this. Let me actually look it up. The Sekiro Shadow Dice Twice cinematic has a lot of these, and you can see towards the end where we see like reflections in the blades, like over here later. Where is it? Yeah, it's somewhere right here. You can see like little reflections, and those aren't really like volumes or stuff. They are textures or stock elements placed on light sources, and it makes it much more controllable than actually relying on the actual light source. It's all about like shuffling layers and trying to align everything.
Yep, makes sense. And this is like I don't think we even spoke about the length of this workshop, but I think it's around 22, 23 hours, right?
Yeah. Yes. The workshop is roughly, I think, 23 hours. I have a lot of things in this table which I try to like keep track of, and I do have before starting the workshop, I try to like write down everything I really wanted to talk about, and I think there's a really decent length table of content here with a lot of unique phrases. We go into a lot of details like why do we need AOVs? I think that's a really important but hard to grasp concept for beginners, like how to use a TX chord or a UV map AOV, and why would we ever render a word normal map, and what do we use it for? Maybe with like rotation matrices, we can relight stuff, etc. But so there are concepts which are about the fundamentals, but I also go into like more complex topics like optimizing lighting for render time, and shading for the character, more or less, working with like UDIMs on characters and USD and materials. And there's a lot of stuff. A very final our last segment is called Final Project because it combines the character lighting we do earlier. It combines the initial setup experiments, which we do with a simplified scene just to make it easier for everybody to like follow, and you don't have to like juggle like huge assets at the beginning. You have like a very simple scene with a simple character, simple environment, everything renders real time, so you can really just go through the steps of like understanding like what is the USD structure and how do we create shots within this USD structure, because at the end it will always end up like some huge graph like this, and that's only for like 4 shots. I had a project where I was working on like 60 shots in the same file within Solaris, and that grew really big, really fast.
So how does that work? Like I'm curious. So let's say you would have 60. So I'm assuming, was it all in the same environment and only the camera was changing, or you had like literally different environments as well?
I could have had different environments, but in this specific case, it was in the same environment, and it works by relying on shot USDs. So there are shot USDs which are pointing at different assets and different animation versions, and these are getting like layered on top of each other, and you rely on a context switch, which is the context option editor in Houdini. And by switching this context, you switch between shots.
Yeah.
So I simplified this approach somewhat by saving out all of our shots in a single USD, and that's just so we don't have to create that whole huge file structure on the back end. But it wouldn't be too much different in a big studio. Like instead of this being a static USD we load, the USD path here would have like a wildcard, and that wildcard references the shot context you set over here. And it just simply switches in between the different shots. I can maybe show it to you how it works in my case. I probably have to like come down to somewhere here, maybe like before the lighting starts. And let's see, I can jump into my main camera, and this little button is very important. And I think most people who are starting out with Solaris, they are missing that. And that's the stage frame range drives the player bar range. You can set a shot range or an actual time frame for the shot in the USD layer itself. And with this little button, you don't have to worry about like resetting your time range based on which shot you're looking at. Houdini will do that. And yeah, that's great for previewing shots. Let's say I switch the shot context here, and the entire shot changes. Now now we are in shot 1000, which is the first shot, because I have a context-based camera duplicate node here. So I'm taking whichever camera is. I'm taking the shot name and then taking the camera tag and creating a new camera from that dynamically changing camera. Thereby, I can stay in a single camera main and switch between shots, and my camera will always update to whatever camera is set to be the camera of those shots. And the same basically happens with everything. This single switch is responsible for like loading in the animation of loading into different animations based on the shot. And we just use a name tag, a select input name tag, and it finds the right shot based on the shot context. You can go more complex. I could cache all of these out and only reference in different files, but I think this way it's more visual. So I try to balance the technicalities of USD, the complexity it has, by displaying how much we can do. Like, for example, we don't have to load the actual look depth on the same level as we load the animation. Like here, I load the character do the shading, and on this path, I'm not loading any shading data. I'm just loading vertex data with like alembics, and I'm overlaying that vertex data on top of my shaded character. And it will pick up everything from the main pipe, and it will just update the animation, which is like the new thing it gets, the new type of data it gets from the other sublayer. So I try to go through these USD-based concepts and make them sound more simple than I do right now. Of course, I don't have as much time. I don't have like 20 hours to explain these. Of course, it's not a USD workshop. It's a lighting and compositing workshop. So while we have to get familiar with this, I'm not going into extreme details, but I try to make a balance between like explaining, staying visual, and also staying practical. Like, I don't think you need to know much more than what you see here to become a lighting artist. You need a lot more about what you see here. This is a lighting tree, and I think what is a really great power with Houdini is you can, this could be true for any node-based approach for lighting. You can define a light rig somewhere, and later on you can reference that light rig and do like minor changes to it. Like shot 1000 is where I did the light rigs. Shot 1000 doesn't really have any per shot changes, but in 1100 I do want to decrease the light, the key light. And instead of actually changing the original light source, I can just do an edit action light modifier on top of that. And that's the power of Solaris and USD, that you can layer modifications on top of each other. And I can say like add if exist and then -5. So I'm adding -5 exposure to it. That means I'm decreasing half of a stop on that exact light source.
Can you show that in the render, or you think it's going to crash? Just so we have something visually to see.
I don't think it will crash, but I don't think it will render really quickly, because at this point, it's not optimized. Like, we do have our characters, our environment, our everything in there. And I did tests. It fits into the memory. Like it is, I think, somewhere between 30 and 40. But the load up speed is going to be slow if you are rendering with that. Yeah. There are ways of making it lighter, and I'm talking a lot about that. I'm talking about like managing a local branch for your local lighting, because you don't need a lot of this. Like I should remove the little props, for example, which I don't need. I do have this prune, everything not important, and that should remove most of the assets which I don't need for my scene, and it makes it so much easier to render locally.
The lighting and the theory of like actually not just theory, but cinematography, which is also like it's a completely different thing. It's more artistic, but it's for a lighter. It's really important to have a good artistic eye and like be able to analyze scenes from movies and then replicate that in CG, right?
Exactly, and that's what I really wanted to go through. Like, I didn't just want to do a lighting for the sake of lighting. I wanted to go through the entire process of what we are doing, and there are so many stages in a production of a high-end cinematic or trailer or movie, and I wanted to go through all of those stages. And one of them is, I know it sounds boring, but planning is extremely important. So there are initial meetings with like art director, soups, mood, setting, layout. These are all given based on scripts or like animatics. We have some vision from the director, scripts, brevis, key arts, color keys, etc. And what we are doing is basically trying to take all of this information, like distill it, and create the best image based on everything we have here. So we have some keywords for our project. It's like ominous or mysterious, and the time of, we have the time of day, the layout. I even added this image because I wanted to show what we get from the client most of the time. This is just a screenshot I found online, but the client usually has like a game ready at some stage. So we do have to like incorporate some of the style, the way they are shaping the mood and the lighting of the game. And here we can clearly see that it's like realistic colors, muted colors, so it's not really like vivid. Like, for example, I don't know, Overwatch has some really strong and vibrant colors, but this is not really on that end. It's more towards the Dark Souls style, like darker colors, and it's low-key, it's dark, and we have to work with these type of like in-game screenshots. I also have a script written for the project where we highlight. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm using a different screen. So I do zoom out to see some parts better on my end. You do have a very big screen. I highlight like parts which are important. Like we have an interior scene, night, candle lit. There's like a fire pit, which later changed into this cauldron holding the fire. And we have lightning strikes and fire reflecting in his eyes. Like these are the little bits which you just have to take out from a script. And after we collect all of these different informations, we look for reference images. These are the final reference images we collected for each of our shots, but there's a process to the madness. Like I'm going through that entire process of like scrolling through a lot of the images. I speed up everything to 20x to not bore you guys. So everything in the workshop is like highly edited. I try to really focus on the important bits, but I do stop and talk about different images, like why they are good, why they are not good. And while these images made the initial cut, each one of them had something which I didn't like. This one, for example, doesn't feel threatening. Like we had the keyword of ominous, and because of how self the light is, it doesn't really serve that purpose. Sometimes we have like just too high key elements, or other times it's just too vibrant, like this image. While it has the same components, it has the cold fill and the warm key, it conveys a different feeling. So we couldn't really follow these type of references. And I also talk about like how to analyze an image. Like, for example, we have this image. What type of lights it has? How do we separate that? Like in which order we approach recreating those lights? For example, we have the ambient, it could be an HDRI, it could be an environment feel, like coming in from the side. We have maybe like lightning strike coming through the windows. We have candles around, those are like accent lights. We could have feel coming from behind the pillar to like highlight and separate it, an edge light on the character. yeah, we are talking a lot about these type of stuff.
Yeah.
Also about more technical terms like what is a prop, what is a set element, like how do we really define those like gray zones, how do we split things into layers to make compositing easier. And I think that's a very important point, like to push it to the next level, which we just looked at, you need to add like a lot of composited elements. Those are the tiny, like last 5% pieces. But to be able to do that, you have to split out your layers accordingly to the needs of compositing. And we will talk about those stuff as well.
Nice. Yeah.
I also have some more theory focused lessons, and I think that's also great for people who don't really either haven't been in the industry for that long, or maybe they start in like smaller companies and would like to see like a glimpse at how things work at a bigger studio. I do have plenty of presentations which were like really curated to introduce the workflow or the specific like vocabulary of the special processes we work with. Do you have any special questions maybe you would like to go through based on the outline and the type of topics we talked about?
I think you covered quite a bit. To me, it's just like very impressive that you go from like theory, technical theory to artistic theory to then applying that theory in Houdini and then rendering and then pushing that through compositing. And it just feels like it's going to be you put a lot of thought into creating this in a very complete workshop that really takes you from the beginning to the end. And it feels like it's for multiple skill levels as well. So it feels like it's for a beginner could pick this up and at the end they would be like really knowledgeable. But it also feels like, it's for people who are already familiar or like maybe are seniors, but they just need to sharpen their skills in one area or another. Might that be in rendering or compositing? It just feels like it's very complete from a lot of different angles.
It's complete and it's focused. So probably there's a chance to expand a lot. We could make it like 200 hours, but I think that is not really what people would love to watch through. Like I'm not exactly sure like people want to watch 300 hours about render setting parameters and how they are calculated within the shader math. But people want to know why it works and why it doesn't. And I try to like focus down to explaining those questions more than, of course, and talking about like industry snippets, like, this is just for fun. This is an actual graph I had to work with at one point. I just got the task to, could you please put this into the other shot? And
nice. This is beautiful. You could frame this. This is like a piece of artwork.
You are joking, but I gave that as a present to a friend of mine last year.
See, that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
exactly.
No, it's great. Yeah,
it is. So I think it's you can take a lot as a beginner, but I don't think like just watching through, especially it's not going to be a second monitor thing. So it will be more in depth and And some of these concepts I cannot spend too much time on. Like, for example, USD is a big thing. Like, I will walk you through with a very simple scene, setting it up one by one. But USD has so many edge cases that you really have to like put in the time to actually practice, maybe like rebuild the scene a few times. Like, try to think about maybe how would you modify my setup? Not in a different way, not exactly how I modified it, like not exactly put the character there where I did. But maybe if you start like experimenting, you will come up with like a better idea of how things really work. While I am walking you through experiences, it just has to be earned. So you have to like really practice, and it will show results. I think I also have some suggestions about practicing, but we will get back to that later. I think, Urban, it will be an interesting topic to all of you guys.
Just to know, we're almost at 1 hour mark. Just you're aware.
Yes. We should probably close it up soon, but yeah.
Yeah.
just some little snippets like talking about like what are hero shots, what are child shots, like how are these like connect to each other. I think these are all informations which are not really present on the internet too much. So I think we really managed to create something unique here. And I'm really looking forward to how people will like it. And I'm looking forward to what you will create with the amazing assets. Maybe that's worth like another word. The actual assets we managed to get for this workshop, I closed it right now, but the trailer has some really nice shots, so you can probably cut in some of those. And it was created by a few industry veteran friends who are also working in Ditrick right now, and they are amazing at characters. It's so detailed. It's really on the next level.
Yeah. And that really helps having good assets to practice on. I know like there's that's a big topic. Usually with workshops, it is a pain in the ass to get good assets or have permission to use those assets if we get them from, online marketplaces.
Yes.
So yeah, it's a really good resource that we have these custom characters now that people can use.
Exactly. And it's not going to be lightweight, that's for sure. Because, well, that wasn't the goal. The goal was to really show you a character which is as heavy as it needs to be for a real trailer. And that requires dense topology and a lot of 4K textures. And you have to work around it. I do have like 3 times stronger machines at work, and they struggle with some of the characters I get. And you simply have to like find ways of simplifying your scene on using the proxy. This character also has like a proxy rig and a proxy setup. That means you can work with like simplified assets in the viewport. You have to like work around these difficulties and get used to it. And if you can explain to a recruiter that, yeah, I did this scene and it was like crazy hard, but I used this and this and this technique that made it easier for me to work with this scene, and they will understand that the struggle, and I think that's a big benefit. Yeah,
yes,
I think I went through most of the stuff which were like lined up to talk about these things.
Yeah, no,
there's anything else?
I think the workshop is when you were showing your list. There's so many things that you're covering. Yes. So, but yeah, I think we went through most of the cool stuff. But yeah, I think it's really, like I said, rendering, lighting. It's something that it's such a fundamental skill that if you want to be in this industry, it's just so important, because you start training your eye artistically. And that's something I see with especially FX artists. They tend to be more technical, so they know how to create like a water simulation or let's say an explosion. But even these more technical setups and FX, you need to have a good artistic eye. And in order to get that artistic eye, you just need to do a lot of training. And I think one of the best ways is, you need to learn how to render light or do cameras or analyze footage to see, why did it work? Why is the mood like that? Just these artistic principles. I keep repeating that in my workshop, even though my workshop is all about explosions. But I spend like a whole week. Week 1 is essentially just me explaining why the artistic principles are important. But yeah, I think it's really cool. I'll be probably checking the workshop as well, because I used to be a cinematographer, so I love doing lighting, rendering, anything like that. I think it's really cool. Yeah, well, I would just want to congratulate you for finishing the workshop. I know it took so much time and effort, and every time somebody starts doing a workshop with us, we try to help as much as possible, but there is so much work that like that falls on you as the instructor. And I know you tried to schedule your time and kind of prepare as much as possible, but it's always it always grows, right? Much larger than you think. Awesome. Well, Alex, thank you so much for doing the workshop. Like I said, congratulations. I know it was like a huge undertaking, and I really, really, really think a lot of people are going to benefit from this. I know I'm going to benefit from this. So you will probably help a lot of people with this, that's why I like teaching, because, that's how humanity advances. Like we teach, we learn, we teach, we learn, right? Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much for having the opportunity. Was a great experience. I learned a lot. I never really did such a big scope of project on my own PC. Like I always like did a shot or two, but not like an entire sequence. So it was like a learning process for me. I always like did it first before even like structuring the way of like how to record it, like practicing. And I found out some new ways of like managing work at home. And
Nice.
and I think I created something which is like really a whole. Like we start from the beginning, we start from theory, and then we go through the steps and achieving a cinematic level like result at the end.
Nice.
So I'm looking forward
Awesome.
to seeing what other people like do based on the workshop. Like really want to see it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you, Alex, so much, and chat to you soon.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.